Hey, what's up? Welcome to another edition of The Mandatory. If you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, follow us on our social media channels. We're at The Mandatory TKO. And you can find us on the audio side as well. So, wherever you find your audio, if you got a couple of minutes, leave a rate and review, give us a 5 star because that helps the channel grow. Lots to get into. We are going to be talking about a video game that's coming out in the boxing world. Yes, Undisputed. We're going to get into all of that later in the show. But first, we got to talk about a fight that's coming up. And I say that with not much excitement, not to diss the fight. We've seen this fight. It's actually it's a rematch. And the first one very controversial. So let's get right into that, Brian. Before we get into how we're going to be betting this, how I guess I could just ask you, are you excited for this fight or are you more excited for the video game?
Oh, you put me in a bad spot there because I'm listen. In terms of video games, let me explain this to people real quick. In terms of video games, like a lot of people have their sort of vices. You know, people smoke weed, people do crack, people drink, people watch porn, whatever the case may be.
Oh
I
my
play
god.
video games. That's what the fuck I do when I'm not working. And Chantel knows this. When I'm not working, I'm probably doing that. Like
Yeah.
it's just what I do. So I'm way more excited about the game. Nevertheless, I am eager to see what happens with this fight from the standpoint of the ramifications coming from it, because I do think this is a make or break fight for both Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall in a big way. Um, but we're not doing a live because you know, I didn't feel like it was. We didn't feel like it was live worthy this week, especially because we've been doing so many lives. It was like, all right, we can take this one, and next week there are a couple of big names in the sport in action. So we decided against it this week.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. Let's not waste any more time. This is going to be the preview for Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall.
Motherfucker, money be green. Money feel like money. That shit look green to you?
All right. So when we take a look at the lines, Josh Taylor is the underdog, a plus 112, taking on a Jack Catterall, who is the favorite at minus 136. Brian, your thoughts on the line here, and how are you going to be betting this one?
Lot of movement toward Jack Catterall lately. Earlier this week, Josh Taylor was plus 105 at one prominent book. Jack Catterall was minus 120. In another book right now, I'm seeing Jack Catterall minus 150. And that's getting closer and closer to becoming a 2-to-1 favorite at that point. So that's very interesting to me. I had Jack Catterall winning the first fight. So let's talk about that for a second. 2 years ago, these two fought when Josh Taylor was still undisputed super lightweight champion, 140 pounder. This was in February 2022. And this was actually the last Josh Taylor title defense for the undisputed championship, because then after that, he started vacating all the belts, and he ended up losing to Teofimo Lopez over a year later, a fight that he was slight favorite for, actually. And Josh Taylor was going to rematch Jack Catterall at some point earlier, and then it didn't end up happening, or whatever the case may be. He fights Teofimo Lopez, loses. In the fight with Jack Catterall, it was not refereed well. There was a couple of like weird like point deduction situations, but overall, Josh Taylor gets knocked down in the fight. That's minus a point. Jack Catterall loses a point, point deduction. Josh Taylor loses another point due to a point deduction. And I rewatched this fight yesterday, so I rescored it, and I had it the exact same way as I did before, which is basically 114, 111 Jack Catterall. That's how I scored it the first time. Did you
That's
have
how
a
I
did
had
you have
it.
a similar?
Yes, I had the exact same scorecard. I gave 7 rounds to Jack Catterall
Yes.
and I gave 5 rounds to Josh Taylor.
And I think probably what hurt Jack Catterall is he didn't finish very strong. You could argue that he lost the last 3 rounds or two of the last three, definitely two of the last three. But even still, I felt like he did plenty enough to win because of how dominant he looked in the first 8, 9 rounds of that fight.
It's so interesting because going into this fight, there was so much controversy in that first fight. And that's because leading up to it, remember, Josh Taylor's undisputed. He just took care of Jose Ramirez. He has all the belts. Jack Catterall, Euro level fighter. I think a lot of people thought going into that fight that Josh Taylor would beat Jack Catterall easily. because I feel like a lot of UK fans felt like Josh Taylor also wasn't getting enough props for being undisputed. And sure, he wasn't probably the sexiest undisputed champion, but Josh Taylor had some wins. I mean, he took care of Regis Prograis in the World Boxing Super Series. However, that was a fight I felt like could go either way, and I felt like Regis won that fight. So, and also that Jose Ramirez fight, and I always say that Jose Ramirez did not look like Jose Ramirez that we're used to in that Josh Taylor fight. Josh Taylor showed off his power, knocked down Jose Ramirez as well, but it didn't look like the Jose Ramirez that we were used to. And then going into this Jack Catterall fight, the way that I had scored it, just like Bryan, 114, 111, a couple of point deductions. But I thought that was a fight that everyone thought Josh Taylor was going to win, and then Jack Catterall gets robbed in broad daylight. That was a pure robbery. And the fact that the judges gave it to Josh Taylor, it raised a lot of controversy. People were looking at the sport of boxing thinking, how corrupt is this? Because that was a clear fight that Jack Catterall won. So going into this fight, is there going to be redemption? And there's also the questions of Josh Taylor, because Josh Taylor has not looked the same. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries. Going into that Teofimo Lopez fight, Teofimo Lopez dominated him. He didn't look good in that fight. A lot of people, UK fans, will say, well, Josh Taylor kind of got it going. Teofimo Lopez wasn't able to get the stoppage. No, no, no. Teofimo Lopez took care of Josh Taylor in that fight. Now, the Jack Catterall fight, I feel like the one thing that Josh Taylor really couldn't get going was his lead hand. His lead hand is really good, right? He also has a really nice left hand. And I feel like Jack Catterall was being so tricky in that first fight that he wasn't able to have success against him. He wasn't able to get into that rhythm because Jack Catterall was taking it all away. Now, the fact that the fight was actually scored a little bit close, I mean, 7 rounds to 5, that's still a close fight. My biggest question heading into this one, Bryan, is what Josh Taylor are we going to get? Because he looks older. He looks at the point where it's like, is Josh Taylor losing it? Because he hasn't looked good in his previous fights. And you're talking about the layoff. And then you take a look at Jack Catterall, and you're also thinking, well, you struggle against Jorge Linares, right? This is a guy that's just waiting. Like, we were supposed to get this fight with these two a while ago. Injuries got in the way. And then Jack Catterall has a dud against, an aging Jorge Linares, who is a tricky fighter. You should never sleep on him. But that was a fight where you're thinking Jack Catterall should easily win. And he struggled. So coming into this fight, both guys have a lot to prove, but I do think Josh Taylor has more to lose, despite the fact that he has accomplished way more than Jack Catterall.
I didn't think the Jorge Linares performance was a dud. I don't think it was like spectacular, but I do think he boxed well in that fight, and I gave him. I don't remember if I had 116, 112, 117, 111, but I thought he won the fight pretty easily. That being said, Jorge Linares is probably a guy you should knock out at this stage because he's been knocked out a bunch of times. But respect to somebody who's been a champion who made actually, he has a Hall of Fame case. So I mean, that's not nothing, and clearly at the end of his career, but that's part of it too with me. Jack Catterall's actually been more active. He's fought multiple times since that Josh Taylor fight. Fought twice last year. Josh Taylor's only fought once. And looking at it, Josh Taylor, like, he fought Jack Catterall in February. Since then, lost to Teofimo Lopez. Before that, the Jose Ramirez fight, which he knocked him down twice. Without those two knockdowns, you could really argue that the fight was a draw. It was that close. As a matter of fact, all the judges' scorecards read 114, 112, which is basically telling you, hey, Jose Ramirez stays on his feet, we might have a draw here. And we absolutely would. And before that, he beat a dude who honestly had no business being in the ring with him, knocked him out in the first round, Apinun Kong Song. And before that was the Regis Prograis fight, which is all to say Josh Taylor hasn't had a meaningful, like, oh shit performance since the World Boxing Super Series before fighting Regis Prograis in the end, a fight that was debatable. You have Regis Prograis winning. A lot of people had it being a draw. I'd like to rewatch it, but I remember feeling like Prograis might have gotten that one because he finished pretty well from what I remember. But I felt like a draw was fair, but I'd like to watch it and rescore it. But yeah, Josh Taylor hasn't looked that impressive in a while against, meaningful competition. And on top of that, 33 years old. He's been playing with the idea of going up to welterweight for a few years and hasn't. So the weight cut thing is an issue. Like I feel like could be an issue.
Remember at one point, they were talking about, and this is before Bud left Top Rank, there was talk that he was supposed to move up to
Yeah.
147 and fight Bud Crawford. Like that's what they were setting Josh Taylor up for. That
Yeah.
fight never happened. And you think about the weight cut, you think about the injuries. He looks kind of withered. Like just taking a
Yeah.
look at him, he looks old. And if you go skill by skill, Brian, Josh Taylor is way more skilled than Jack Catterall.
Should
Like
be
I'm
at least. Should be.
he's a better boxer all around in my opinion. But I'm at the point where I'm questioning his age and all the injuries he's been through, the mileage on those legs. And he's still like he's 33 years old, so he's in a weird position where he's like old, but he's not that old. Right?
Also,
But
not that many pro fights because he turned pro late after a lengthy amateur career.
and I also want to make a point that this fight, the first one, caused a lot of people to have beef in the UK and like the Scottish people. They were like beefing about this stuff. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, Josh Taylor got bodied. They're all mad.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was pissed off that Jack Catterall did not get awarded the win for that fight because it was a clear win for him. And so going into this fight, I think a lot of fans want to know what Josh Taylor are we going to get? Are we going to get the old Josh Taylor? And is Jack Catterall as good as he seems? Because sometimes you could just have one really, really good performance. And Josh Taylor has also switched trainers a lot.
Yeah.
He
that's
has
true.
switched trainers so
More than
much.
Anthony Joshua, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with these UK fighters, but they're switching trainers. And so Josh Taylor with that as well, not having the consistency for a little bit of a while now. So you know what? I think we kind of broke down this fight well, more like better than I thought.
More
Better
than
than I
you
thought.
wanted. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I know. We gave it some good time for
We
the
could
UK
do
fans.
picks now. We could do picks now.
Okay.
It's cool.
How are you betting this one?
Shout out to everybody in the UK if you're watching. Or anybody in the UK if you're watching for that matter.
Or anyone that's watching.
I have Jack Catterall winning this fight. I think that he does get the redemption he deserves. He should still be undefeated because this loss on his record is the Josh Taylor one in question. I think Jack Catterall wins this, and I'm just betting it straight up on the money line because I do think while I would lean decision here for obvious reasons, he's not like a big power puncher, but I feel like a lot of what he did in that first fight, he can duplicate it. Like he can land that 1-2 consistently again. Josh Taylor has a size and reach advantage, but he doesn't use it because he likes fighting on the inside. He likes trying to bully smaller fighters. He tried to do this against Regis Prograis. He tried to do this against, Jack Catterall the first time, and he was paying for it. The defense wasn't quite there. And Jack Catterall was just setting up his 1-2, landing left hands over the top with success, and was able to retaliate when it looked like Josh Taylor was trying to bully him. And on top of that, I have questions about the weight cut with Josh Taylor, the age, and also he hasn't looked very impressive in a while. He hasn't been very active in a while. And I think Jack Catterall, who is younger, who is seemingly more poised as of late, like I just think he's going to win this fight. And I think there's a slight chance he knocks him out. So I'm going to do it in the money line because there's a slight chance that the weight cut, sort of finally bothers Josh Taylor in a way that's really damning. He hasn't been very active lately, and Jack Catterall, there was a time in even the first fight where it was like, hey, if Jack Catterall, probably around round 9 or so, if Jack Catterall turns it up here, could he actually get the stoppage? Which did not happen because he turned the volume down a little bit, which is probably how he got robbed in the first place. But I think on the money line, Jack Catterall, that's where I'm going to go. Seemingly where a lot more people are starting to go, and I think he's going to get the win he deserves here.
Oh man, all this is just making me so tired, Oh my god, this fight.
Chantelle's not excited for this fight at all.
No, I'm gonna watch it before bed. I'm gonna watch it, but it's probably gonna make me go. I'm a terrible sleeper, so this one's gonna get it done. So leading up to this fight, the way that we broke it down, both of these guys need the win. Josh Taylor needs the win. I think Josh Taylor needs some redemption. Obviously, when you win a fight against a guy named Jack Catterall, who at the time, Euro level fighter, at the time, he's waiting for a chance against Josh Taylor because he's like the biggest thing at the moment being undisputed. I mean, they fought for undisputed. They fought for undisputed 140 pounds and nobody was really talking about it, right? So for Jack Catterall, that was a big fight. He had nothing to lose, whereas Josh Taylor had everything to lose. And I think for Josh Taylor, he's kind of had it on his mind. Listen, I got to beat Jack Catterall. Against Teofimo Lopez, he kind of got in a rhythm. The layoff to me is an issue. Jack Catterall's been busier. But I think Josh Taylor, like his career is on the line at this point. Whereas Jack Catterall, even if he loses, he's a guy that's going to get fights. He's a guy that could possibly fight Regis Prograis because there was talk about it. Liam Paro. Like, I think Jack Catterall's been more in the mix of being in these conversations. All around better fighter, I think it's Josh Taylor. Now, all signs should prove that I should bet on Jack Catterall, but I'm not going to do it because I think Josh Taylor is the better fighter. I think he's fighting for his career at this point. And even when he was undisputed, he never got the hype like Devin Haney got when he was undisputed, or, you know, Alexander Usyk is getting right now. Like, Josh Taylor was like the least sexiest undisputed champ. And for him, he's probably like, why? Right? UK fans are probably like, why? I do think, listen, this is a bet that I'm taking because I just think Josh Taylor is overall the better fighter. And I think there's a lot more hype on Jack Catterall. I think Josh Taylor is going to start off slow. I think Jack Catterall can just go to his game plan from last fight, the first fight, and try to use that because Josh Taylor couldn't get into a rhythm. But I also think the layoff for Josh Taylor hopefully helped him with his injuries because I think it was a big cause for him not being able to fight the way that he normally fights. So no, I feel like I should go with Jack Catterall in this one, but this is a fight that I don't really care about. So I'm gonna bet Josh Taylor at plus 220. And I want to see Josh Taylor get this W.
220 by decision?
Yes, by decision on
Okay.
FanDuel. You can find that, which are some good odds. Like, if I'm gonna watch this fight, I'm going to take the underdog for this one because I still think it's a close fight when you go to the first one. Yes, sure. Jack Catterall won, but it was like 2 rounds, right? It was 7-5 for me. And if you don't take away those point deductions, it's still a really close fight. And that was a Josh Taylor that struggled. So that's why I'm rocking with Josh for this one. And here at the Mandatory, we want to know how you're betting this fight. So make sure to drop your comments below and drop your slips. And also let us know, how excited are you for this rematch? I mean, if you're in the UK, you might be kind of hyped for it. Let's be serious here, right? If you're in Europe, you might be kind of hyped for it.